A janitor who never made more than minimum wage died with $8 million in the bank. A CEO who earned millions every year died broke, owing money to people he'd borrowed from just to pay rent. Same world, same economy, completely opposite outcomes. What happened? The math doesn't explain it. The intelligence doesn't explain it. The opportunity doesn't explain it. What explains it is something most people never think about, something that controls your financial life way more than your salary ever will: your psychology. The stories you tell yourself about money, the invisible beliefs running in the background of every financial decision you make. Morgan Housel wrote a book called The Psychology of Money, and it changed how millions of people understand wealth, not because it teaches you how to invest, but because it teaches you how to think, how to see the emotional forces that control your relationship with money. And once you see them, everything changes. Let's start with something that feels unfair. Two people can make the exact same financial decisions and end up in completely different places. Why? Because of something called luck and something called risk. Imagine the people born in the same year, both smart, both hardworking, both invest their money the same way. One starts their career in 1950, the other starts in 1970. The 1950 person retires wealthy. The 1970 person struggles. Same strategy, different timing. The 1950 person wasn't smarter. They just happened to ride one of the greatest bull markets in history. The 1970 person hit stagflation and economic chaos. Same decisions, different outcomes because of forces completely outside their control. This is the first uncomfortable truth about money. Your results aren't just about your choices. They're about your choices plus timing plus circumstances plus 1,000 things you can't control. But here's what's interesting. We never see it that way. When we succeed, we think it's because we're smart. When we fail, we think someone else was lucky. When someone else succeeds, we think they were lucky. When someone else fails, we think they made bad choices. We rewrite the story to make ourselves the hero and others the accident. But Morgan Housel says something powerful. Until you accept that luck and risk are both real, you'll never understand money. Because if you think success is all skill, you'll take crazy risks thinking you're invincible. If you think success is all luck, you'll never try anything bold. The truth is somewhere in between. And living in that truth is uncomfortable, but it's real. Now let's talk about something nobody wants to admit. You don't actually want to be rich. You want to feel rich. And those are completely different things. Being rich means having money. Feeling rich means feeling like you have enough. And here's the problem. Most people spend their whole lives chasing the feeling by trying to get the money. But it never works. Because enough isn't a number, it's a psychological state. You could have $1 million and feel broke. You could have 50,000 and feel wealthy. It depends entirely on what you think you need, what you compare yourself to, what story you're telling yourself about what success looks like. Housel tells a story about Rajat Gupta, a man who had everything, hundreds of millions of dollars, respect, power, influence, and he threw it all away doing insider trading. He risked everything to make a little more money he didn't even need. Why? Because he compared himself to billionaires, and no matter how much he had, it wasn't enough compared to them. He lost his sense of enough, and it destroyed him. This is the trap that catches almost everyone, the moving goalpost of enough. You think if I just make 60,000 a year, I'll be happy. Then you make 60,000 and realize people are making 80,000, so now you need 80,000. Then you make 80,000 and see people making 150,000, so now you need that. The goalpost keeps moving, and you never feel wealthy, no matter how much you actually have. Housel says the hardest financial skill is getting the goalpost to stop moving, to decide this is enough. I'm done chasing more. Because until you do that, you'll never feel rich, even if you become rich. Now let's talk about something that explains why smart people make terrible money decisions: compound interest. Everyone knows about compound interest intellectually. You invest money, it grows. The growth makes more growth. Eventually you have a lot, but knowing about it and feeling it are completely different. Housel points out that Warren Buffett is worth over $100 billion. But do you know how much of that he made after his 50th birthday? 99% of it. He started investing when he was 10. He's 93 now. He's been investing for 83 years. If he had retired at 60 like most people, he'd be worth a tiny fraction of what he's worth now. His wealth isn't because he's the best investor, it's because he's been a good investor for an incredibly long time. That's compound interest, not magic, just time. But here's why smart people still don't get it, because our brains aren't built to understand exponential growth. We understand linear growth. You save $100 a month. After 12 months, you have $1,200. Easy, but exponential growth doesn't feel real. You invest money and for years it looks like nothing is happening. Then suddenly everything happens at once, and most people quit during the nothing is happening phase because it feels like it's not working. This is why people chase get-rich-quick schemes, because waiting 30 years for compound interest to work feels impossible. But Housel says something beautiful. Good investing isn't about making brilliant moves. It's about not interrupting compound interest. It's about being patient, boring, consistent. It's about doing the simple thing for a very long time, even when it feels like nothing is happening. Now here's something that will change how you think about wealth. Rich and wealthy are not the same thing. Rich is your current income. Wealthy is your future options. You can be rich and not wealthy. High income but no savings. Living paycheck to paycheck with a luxury car. You can be wealthy and not rich. Lower income but years of savings. Options. Freedom. Housel says wealth is what you don't see. It's the car not purchased, the clothes not bought, the vacation not taken. Wealth is invisible because it's money you didn't spend. And this is why most people never build it, because spending money is visible, saving money is invisible. When you buy an expensive car, people see it. When you save money, nobody sees anything. So we get social credit for spending and no credit for saving. Our brains are wired to do things that get us social recognition. So we spend, and we never build wealth. The truly wealthy people often look middle class because they're not spending their money. They're keeping it. Housel tells another story. He talks about how he and his wife drive used cars and live in a modest house, not because they can't afford more, but because they value flexibility and freedom more than stuff. Wealth isn't about owning things. It's about having options, time, freedom to say no to things you don't want to do. That's worth more than any car. Now let's talk about why your childhood controls your financial future more than your education or your salary. Everyone has a different relationship with money, and it was formed before you were old enough to understand what was happening. If you grew up during a recession, you think about money differently than someone who grew up during a boom. If your parents fought about money, you think about money differently than someone whose parents never mentioned it. If you saw your father lose his job and the family struggle, you think about money differently than someone who always felt secure. These experiences create something called money scripts, stories you tell yourself about what money means. Money is safety, money is power, money disappears. Rich people are greedy, poor people are lazy. These scripts run in the background of every financial decision you make. And most people never even know they're there. Housel says nobody is crazy when it comes to money. Everyone's making decisions that make sense to them based on their own experiences. A person who lived through hyperinflation will never trust the stock market. That's not crazy. That's their lived reality. A person who got rich from taking risks will keep taking risks, even when it doesn't make sense anymore, because that's what worked for them. Your personal history with money creates your personal logic about money, and your logic might be completely different from someone else's. This is why financial advice that works for one person doesn't work for another, because we're all operating from different scripts. The question is, do you know what your script is? Or is it running your life without you realizing it?